All right, so Metroid Prime 4 has come out already. It is January, and I have not played it yet. So this preview episode or discussion is still valid. It's still okay to do this. This is not a spoiler cast, and I still do not know how I feel about that game because again, I've not had a chance to play it, and I also even when I did have a chance, didn't really feel up for it. And while I don't think they've made any major mistakes with the launch cycle leading up to Metroid Prime 4, I do think missed they had a lot of potential that they left on the table. They really missed a chance to rev into this thing really nicely with re-releases of Prime 2 and 3. You know, we got that beautiful, beautiful remaster of Prime 1, which makes it the definitive way to play that game. And honestly, it's one of those cases where it just replaces the original. Like, I don't think there's any significant changes except maybe to some of the text and in-game lore and stuff. But even then, it's reflective of changes that were already seen in like a re-release like Metroid Prime Trilogy, which I think already had seen some or implemented some of those lore adjustments and text changes. But even then, the core gameplay and the structure of the game and how it feels and what you do and how you do it, it's all consistent across the various versions of it, including the remaster, which I think again is the definitive way. Like, there's no reason other than nostalgia and also to just see how the original game looked. All this to say, I think, yeah, in between the launch of Prime Remastered and now Prime 4, there was ample time to repackage and re-release Prime 2 and 3. And it would have been, a little bit in poor taste to re-release Prime 2 as a purchasable game, given that the GameCube NSO expansion was coming. But even if it had been like even just a few months before the launch of GameCube on the Nintendo Switch Online, and we were playing, given and made to purchase Prime 2 via a double pack or something with Prime 2 and 3, it's better than what we've got now, which is no re-release via purchasable path like a double pack or a remaster or on GameCube Online, which it's a shame. It's a real shame because Prime Remastered is great, again, definitive version of Prime 1, but that's not the full trilogy. It's not the full story. There's massive story beats missing that are only present and can be experienced in Prime 2 and 3. And I don't know how consequential this trilogy is to Prime 4, how much of what happens and who is featured and stuff in that saga is featured here in Prime 4, other than Silex, who was featured in Metroid Prime Hunters, which takes place in between Prime 1 and 2. But then again, I don't expect Prime Hunters to be part of that, package or whatever, but they could have done that too. I don't know. That would have been freaking sweet, dude. That would have been so sweet. Like if in 2024 we got that. Oh my gosh, like 2023 Prime Remastered, 2024 Prime 2 and 3, and I guess Hunters as part of a trilogy or some kind of package for purchase in that year, and then of course Prime 4 in 2025. They could have done something like that. I think they should have, because after doing that myself, after revisiting the first 3 Prime games, I feel like that would have been the right path. But first, before we get into Prime 4 and the Prime games proper, just want to give a brief history of my history with the Metroid series. And it all started back in 2002, 50 years ago. Which I think is probably still the best year in Metroid, depending on how you feel about the games and other games. But it seems definitive. Like, we got 2 amazing games, mainline games, in the form of Metroid Fusion and Metroid Prime. Not only in the same year, but on the same day. And that's crazy. And they had, there was a little bit of crossover where if you like linked up your Game Boy Advance or something with your GameCube, you could have the Fusion suit in Prime, which is not in Prime Remastered, unfortunately, but whatever, that's fine. It didn't have any gameplay changes or anything. I don't even think it changed the arm cannon because the arm cannon looks different in Fusion, but yeah, that was insane. And it's strange because I was thinking about it and I don't actually remember why I cared at all about those two games coming out because growing up, I wasn't like under the guidance or of a Sherpa, like a video game savant, someone who was already enjoying them that was older than me and stuff. Like my parents don't play video games. I don't have older siblings and cousins that were into them. So it was just kind of me, getting into that stuff along with my younger relatives who did like it. But again, we're not really like we weren't in the same household or anything. So I think I just kind of got interested in them because of Nintendo Power and other like gaming outlets and magazines and stuff at the time. Because otherwise, I can't really remember a reason why I would have been. But I did get Prime and Fusion, I think that year, maybe as Christmas gifts or birthday gifts or something. And that's the start for me. And I was young and I took to them. Like I liked them. Like Fusion up until the launch and release of Breath of the Wild was my favorite game of all time. And I still adore it. It's still my favorite Metroidvania. I still think even after revisiting it, it holds up and it is flawless. And it's what makes Prime's discourse interesting because I actually didn't take to it as well. I did beat it. I did finish it as a kid. But there are two factors that I think kept me from loving it, or maybe three. Three factors. One of them is the console. Like, I don't know what, but maybe there was TV time issues as a kid. The home console's connected to the TV. Not everybody can use it at the same time, so I just would end up not being able to play at certain times maybe. But I just spent way more time and invested way more into my portable gaming consoles, like my Game Boy Color and my Game Boy Advance. With the Game Boy Advance really marking, a special time in my childhood. That's and my video game youth. That's a special console to me. I spent a lot of time playing games on that. I love it very much to this day, and Fusion is a part of that reason why I love it so much. I played it a ton. Like I took to Fusion because I was already into my Game Boy Advance and there was nothing could stop me from playing it. No car ride, no practice in sports. Like there was always a chance to play Fusion because all I needed to do was have my Game Boy Advance with me, and it was easy. It was very portable compared to the portable quote unquote consoles of today. You stick it in your pocket or your backpack or whatever. It's very easy and it's very sturdy, and I had all these attachments and things for it. But yeah, because it was a game on a system that I already favored and played a lot, I played it so much more. And it's something uncharacteristic of me too. That's not something I did back then a lot, and something I still don't do even now or never did at any point, which is like replay games as soon as I beat them or shortly after. I usually don't ever come back to them, or when I do, it's years and years later. But fucking Fusion, man, I was just like overwriting those save files again and again, just like beat it. Like it was speed running before I even knew what speed running was. Like I was getting some really quick times. I'd be like, oh, I could do faster than that. I'd play it again. And so Fusion made an imprint on me, and for me was my introduction to Metroid. And so various elements from Fusion served as formative and indicative of what I felt were core elements of a Metroid game or a Metroidvania. So Prime was interesting because for me, one, I wasn't a first person shooter kid. Like again, I didn't really have siblings who I played games with, so it wasn't like I was playing multiplayer shooters all the time. I only had Nintendo consoles, and they had a few, the N64, the iconic GoldenEye multiplayer, and any other first person things on there. that was a thing, but you weren't really getting that on Game Boy and Game Boy Advance, so I already wasn't spending much time with those there. And on GameCube, sure, there was probably more. Obviously, it was Metroid Prime and whatnot, but those aren't the Prime games aren't first person shooters. First and foremost, that's secondary to the core experience of exploring, right, and doing Metroidvania stuff. So yeah, already it was kind of like out of my wheelhouse. Again, I still beat it, but like it didn't imprint as hard because I wasn't already someone who was big into first person shooters. Two, it was on the home console. So like I just, it was when you were home and the TV was available. And yeah, and it was before bedtime. So like I could sneak my Game Boy under the covers, but I can't sneak my fucking TV, right? But and then the third thing is something that I think still is valid is that these games are creepy. Like they're very atmospheric. Metroid Prime, of course, opens with that somewhat space horror-esque frigate Orpheon scene, which is like out of a horror movie, right? It's like near, and it's like mysterious. It's like what's all these dead people all over the place, and there's fire and stuff. And Metroid Fusion has this too, where the freaking like it's got creepy elements to it. It's also it's a pixelated 2D game. It's colorful. It's got a fun soundtrack for some of it, and some of it's very ambient too and stuff. Metroid's always been good at the ambience and stuff, but the 2D games are obviously just by default just way more approachable for a child, for a young person. And someone like me who didn't, again, I didn't have a Sherpa, so I didn't have someone indoctrinating me into horror games. I didn't grow up with horror games. I'm still not a horror aficionado. And I just found those games, first one included, to be kind of I had to get in the mood for them, because I had to steel myself because they were intimidating on that front. I thought they're very ambient, they're very creepy. You are in the shoes of Samus. You are looking through her visor at these goddamn alien monstrosities, in strange environments. And as a child, it's intimidating. And especially even nowadays, like I still get creeped out by like the thermal visor and the X-ray visor. And on replays, I still like I remembered that in my remaster replay both times where I'm like, oh, this is that segment. This is that quasi horror segment where the lights go off and you have to use the thermal visor, and then there's the Metroids floating around. Oh my god. And that's the thing, like I have a legitimate fear of Metroids, the creature. They are to me what bats are to Batman. Like if I ever donned a suit, it would be a Metroid related thing because I fear it, and I think it's something to be scared of. And so seeing them in first person, is like it was terrifying. And even nowadays, I still get creeped out by it. Like any of those segments or areas in these games where I know there's Metroids, I'm a little. I'm a little tense because just creep me the fuck out, dude. They're just good. They're amazing creatures. They're iconic. And when they latch onto you in Prime, they latch onto your visor. You can't see anything. It's just so fucking terrifying. Yeah, Prime 1 is actually holds its own on the ambience and creepy front and horror game kind of front. Surprisingly, it rivals 2, but I think 2 takes it up a few notches and does so intentionally and leans into it in a couple ways that I'll get into in a bit. But yeah, so for those reasons, even like with Prime 2 and 3 as I got older, they were still, I didn't take to them at the time as much as I did in a recent playthrough. Like a few months ago, like after that trailer where they showed the release date and we finally knew when it was coming out exactly and that it was going to come out, I was like, okay, it's time. Like I gotta revisit these games because I hadn't, and we'll go from there. And I did stick with Metroid. Like Metroid Fusion was a positive experience. Metroid Prime was as well, even though it was a tenuous one, right? Like I'm like, oh, this game, But I was so hyped for Prime 2, and I checked out Prime 3 as well. Even though I was kind of checked out of gaming during that generation with the Wii, I have the copy of Metroid Prime 3 right here on me, and my Wii. So yeah. Even so, I haven't replayed them since the original times that they came out, except Prime Remastered for obvious reasons because it just came out a couple years ago. But yeah, I stuck with Metroid ever since. Again, Wii generation, like Wii and Wii U generation, I was checked out a bit, so I didn't check out other M. But otherwise, yeah, I got Zero Mission, Samus Returns, Prime 2, 3, of course, Dread. Yeah, and Metroid is. I was thinking about it with all this hype around Prime 4 and stuff, and I was like, you know what? In this video I'm making, I was like, I'm only doing this, like this video I'm doing, this separate thing. It's another thing. Because I love this series, and I've now like realized it's my favorite video game series. Like I've never really thought about it, those things. I've never done tier lists for personal things like that. But I am realizing now with the Prime 4 on the horizon and me going to play it soon. I'm going to play it later today, actually. I'm finally going to boot it up. Unless something happens or I don't feel like it, get tired or something. Yeah, it is my favorite series, and it started all the way back in 2002 with the amazing and unprecedented release of two massive games, with one of them being a little bit more massive, even though Fusion was big too, because that was the long-awaited follow-up to Super Metroid, and it literally had been like what, 7 or 8 years between those two. So like Metroid droughts and hiatuses are just a thing. It's a core part of this franchise, but not for the Prime games, because yeah, I have revisited them, and in my research of them was surprised to see that Prime came out in 2002. Prime 2 came out in 2004, just 2 years later, and then only 3 years after that, 2007, was Metroid Prime 3. We will never see development cycles and releases like that again, except with maybe the Yakuza team and how they've been releasing stuff and whatnot, like the Kiwamis and all that. Like, it feels like we're getting Yakuza every year, and we probably have been. I just haven't been keeping track. But other than that, you don't see turnaround like that. And we used to a lot. Like, there were whole trilogies that would get released within a single console cycle. And it's surprising because these games are of excellent quality. Prime premium quality. Like, my overall take on these games after replaying them is I greatly underappreciated them as a youth or growing up. You know, like emotions are changing, right? We're going through puberty during all these games when they're releasing. Like, my feelings on everything is changing constantly, day to day. But now that I've stabilized, and I can revisit these with some more experience under my belt as a gamer, I can say that, one, they are just on their own as games excellent, like premium quality, masterfully made games. Two, they are unique. Like, there are 3D Metroidvanias and games with Metroidvania elements in the first person or 3D space. Not very many like Metroid Prime, though, or any of these Metroid Prime games. And I will like try to look for them and look for other experiences like that and play them. I'm sure they're out there. But these are a treat, a rare treat. They weren't back then. Like I said, it was just like boom, boom, boom. Like every few years we got those 3 games. And then we did it. You know, Nintendo didn't and Retro didn't revisit first person Metroid until finally now. And even this one, like, apparently I just saw the headline that were going to reboot development again. They rebooted it once, and that led to it being a 7 or 8 year development cycle. Imagine if they had rebooted it again. You know, like, this game barely apparently just came to fruition. Which is crazy because all the blueprints are there, even though I'm sure Retro has a vastly different team than the one that they had back in those days. It's like, I don't know how it could have been that difficult. Like, unless there really was a lack, which is the most worrying thing to me, is a lack of inspiration. Because that was the main issue. Like, when they announced Prime 4 back in 2017, I was actually a little bit on the fence, because like Metroid Prime stands for something. It's not just like a fun name for the series, like for the spinoff wing of it. It's a character. Metroid Prime is an enemy in the first game that becomes Dark Samus. Metroid Prime is Dark Samus. We, spoilers, we take care of Dark Samus in Prime 3. So when we got just the title for the game and nothing else, I'm like, what does this mean? Is it just like it's called Metroid Prime because it's a first person Metroid game? Or because she ain't dead or it ain't dead yet? And I was just like, are they, do they have a good reason to dip back into this? Is there a reason to revisit Dark Samus? Like, I was a little on the fence, and now it seems like maybe those fears are a little bit justified, because this developments for this game just sounds horrendous. Like, fucking horror, like hell. What do they call it? It was like development hell. And it's like, what the heck, man? Like I'm saying, the blueprint, like, I love these 3 Prime games, but they are, Prime 2 and 3 are just building and iterating on the foundation set by Prime 1. Like Prime 4 should just be doing the same thing, but, new setting and a new labyrinth and characters and story and stuff and lore, like tons of other work. But like otherwise, it's the visor, you're walking around, you're shooting things, like the foundation is set. We should know how to make a Prime game. Retro did it in like fucking no time flat with those first 3 games. And it to just like, they made it look easy, dog. It is crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, my overview of the first 3 games is underappreciated by me and now very, very appreciated. I think it's a stellar trilogy. The gameplay is unique and fun, and I could replay these games indefinitely. Like, I could just go through Metroid Prime 1, then move on to 2, take my time with that, move on to 3, and just kind of be always playing a Metroid Prime game, even if it's just these 4. Hopefully 6. I don't know. We don't know if 4 is a standalone. This development cycle is very worrying. I don't know what they wanted to do, if they even wanted to make this. That's what I'm worried about at most, is if it wasn't an inspired choice. If there actually wasn't any meat on the bone anymore, and Retro's like, all right, we'll try to make a game, but they just kept struggling to put one together because they didn't really have anything left in the tank. But from what I've seen in the trailers, I mean, they got stuff. They got stuff. I like what I've seen so far. I have gone on media blackout since the release date trailer, though. The one where we saw the motorcycle for the first time. So I don't know what else and whether anything they have shown is worrying. Although the review scores were not as high as I thought they would be. But also, a lot of people don't like Metroid Prime 2. And after playing the 3 games again, it's my favorite. And like, not only that, it is like butting up against Metroid Dread in the second slot as like potentially my second favorite Metroid game. So my opinion and feeling on these games and other things is, of course, not always in line with the public's opinion, it seems, or the overwhelming majority's opinion. So I'm not worried that review scores maybe aren't what I think I'm gonna feel and what my score would be for it. But I am surprised a bit that even after what we've seen, we're not seeing more like 9s and 10s, right? Like, I think it's settling around an 8 or 80 on Metacritic, which is perfectly great. That's still very high for Metacritic. But yeah, so it could go either way. That's where I see it. It's like, it could go either way. Like, it could be disappointing or whatever. It's actually good, because if it was like 10s across the board, then I'm kind of going in like, okay, I better see some crazy shit here. This better be crazy impressive. Whereas with the 8, it's like, all right, like, it's liked, but it's not setting the bar too low or too high. It's just like, okay, cool. Like, this is worth the time. And I mean, I was going to play it even if it got fucking like 60 or something. Like, I just have to, because it's Metroid and it's retro and it's Prime. This ain't Other M, this ain't like some random offshoot project from a studio it's untested, like Prime was untested. So people didn't need to feel impressed or obligated to like it, like it impressed on its own because it is impressive. But let's go through each game real quick and give a synopsis and where I stand on them. So we start with Metroid Prime 1, and like I said, Prime 2 is my definitive first top favorite of the 3 games, but I actually don't know which game takes the second spot, because honestly, when it comes to debating it between Metroid Prime 1 and Metroid Prime 3, it's almost apples and oranges because of how different the tones for those games are. And we'll go into Prime 1 first. That game, to me, if you change a few elements, you throw Kraid in there and change some of the biomes a bit, this game could pass as a 3D remake of Super Metroid or Metroid 1. Because to me, it is those games in terms of pacing and tone and spirit. Like, this is Samus dropping onto a planet on her own, and she's running around. Like, she's exploring, and there is no interaction with other characters. There's very little to nothing in terms of narrative structure. Like, she honestly could, if there wasn't like game design and game mechanics to be thought of, like, she could take on any of these areas or obstacles however she saw fit, as long as you get to the final boss, right? Like, that's the only narrative sort of like checkpoint in here. Otherwise, it's kind of freeform in between those 2 points, A and B. And that's how it is for like Super Metroid, where for me, like, again, like, I cut my teeth on and was introduced to Metroid via Fusion. That is a very different game in those respects, like in terms of pacing, narrative, and tone, than Super Metroid and Metroid Prime. And I actually preferred the serving of those things in Metroid Fusion. And it's kind of why I feel a little less like I don't hold Prime to the same pedigree as other people do. Like, it's like common knowledge. It's like Beatles, right? Like, Beatles are the greatest band of all time. Metroid Prime is the greatest Metroid Prime game. Like, that sort of seems to be the public sentiment. I don't agree. And I think it's because the story is so uninvolved, right? Like, and that for other people, that is exactly what they want from a Metroid game. They want to be completely alone. They don't want to run into any other characters and waste any time with cutscenes or dialogue or anything. Just constantly just in the game, just pure gameplay, running around and just doing Metroidvania stuff and just being completely engrossed in a solo ambient, 100% ambient adventure, right? That's not me. And Metroid Prime is that. And so, like, it can kind of feel like I need those injections of like just some kind of cutscene of some kind, right? Like some kind of story or whatever to kind of present a break from the ambience. That's kind of my thing. I realize is like I love the ambience. I love it. I love Metroid's my favorite series for a reason. I love most things, all things about it, right? But I do like what Fusion did with its injection of story and character dialogue and interactions and things like that, and the way it did it to just kind of break things up a bit, to make things, to keep things, I don't know, just like an ebb and flow. And I think there's value to that. And other people are, it's your opinion, it's art. We all critique it and view it from different lenses and value different things. But yeah, for me, that's why Prime, while otherwise it's a perfectly amazing experience, like it's silky, like these games, like I said, there's a reason I could be playing them perpetually going forward, and I probably will just keep replaying them again and again. It's because they're fun as hell. Like, they got everything right in terms of controls, in terms of how to create a Metroidvania like maze in a 3D space. The environments are just Metroid perfect. Like, they totally fit in with what the series is known for. Like, nothing feels like an affront to Metroid. Nothing feels blasphemous. Retro understood the assignment, and honestly, they not only showed a complete understanding of Metroid and a mastery of the Metroidvania game design genre, or game design within the genre, but they would in the eventual like Prime 2 and Prime 3 start sort of like carve their own path in it and give a slightly, give their own take, unique spin on Metroid and various elements of it and stuff without betraying what it is. And I think actually expanding it for the better, in ways that feel natural too. Like the series needed to go in these directions and experience these kinds of things because they just make sense given the setting and the characters and stuff, specifically with Prime 3 and whatnot. But we'll see it in Prime 2. Like, I think all three of them do nothing wrong. Like, I think they're perfect games. It's just like a matter of, all right, we've got 3 10s, like if I have to rank them for whatever reason. Yeah, Prime 2 just holds a special place, and it's for the reason that it just has a little bit more of that like story and character involvement that we don't get really in Prime 1. The opening cutscene is really cool. The opening area is cool. After that, though, you're just left up to your own devices. You're just on your own, and that's cool too. Yeah, at a certain point, I just straight up turned off the music and was like, let's really soak this in. This is a vibe, right? This kind of experience where you're completely isolated and alone. There's no assistant, no one on the comms or anything. It's just Samus. She doesn't talk or chat to herself or anything. It is literally just you and the environment. And I wanted to soak it in a different way, and it was cool. It was really cool, just like hearing her footsteps and the sound of the different beams and stuff, and the different sounds that the critters and creatures of the world make, and the environments too, like the bubbling lava and stuff, like in the lava area and whatnot, like the sound of the footsteps in the snow. Like it's an interesting experience, especially with the remastered graphics. Like, oh my god, it's beautiful. It's like walking around a real place. But yeah, really nothing bad to say about Prime, except it feels like the humble, kind of quiet beginning of the trilogy in like every sense. And also a little safe in that it is the most Metroid, like classic Metroid of them all, like in terms of the suits you get, the beams, the missiles and all, like all the abilities and even the settings and stuff. Like I said, it feels like Super Metroid in so many ways. Like it feels like they use that as a way to get their feet wet and get the ground under them, so that when they finally go into uncharted waters in the next two games, that they have a solid basis to work from, right? And they did, clearly. Like, people revere this game for a reason, because it is a fucking amazing Metroidvania experience. But Prime 2, like I said, that's my jam right there. Humble beginnings out of the way. Metroid walked. Spider-Man 1 walked. So Spider-Man 2 and Metroid 2 could run. Like I love the whole trilogy. It's almost the same, like it echoes some of the sentiment and like elements of the Metroid Prime trilogy, strangely enough. But yeah, Spider-Man 2, you start off, he's already in the suit, he's swinging around, right? Like it's like that in Metroid, where it's like our Metroid Prime 2, like, all right, let's go. Like we got the morph ball for the first time. We now have it. We have it from the start here. We don't lose it like we do in Metroid Prime. And they already, Retro goes, all right, let's, like, they really do make conscious decisions and clearly made a conscious choice to try and differentiate each of these entries from each other in pretty dramatic fashion. And one of the ways they did so was by introducing a dark light world mechanic, which wasn't new in games. Already A Link to the Past did that, right? Like, this is something that has been seen in gaming before this released, but to do it here, like on your second attempt, at a first-person Metroidvania, which is already still like early days technically, and kind of uncharted at the time, they were making leaps, and there's other things here I won't discuss because there's like spoilers for the game, but like obviously, other than the dark world and using that to sort of, lean into the puzzle aspect of exploration and whatnot, which I think was cool. They also leaned into survival horror. And one of the hallmarks of survival horror is ammunition. and monitoring and maintaining your ammo. So they added in this game, for what I think is the first time in any Metroid game at this point, they added ammo for your beams. Like, we have ammo for missiles, obviously. You spend the whole game expanding your missile count in every game, but never for your actual beam weapons. And in Metroid Prime 2, they do that. And that, I think, in what I was surprised to see was, like in recent research, was that people, don't like Prime 2 as much as I do. And I didn't know that was a thing. And one of the reasons is because of the ammo system. And honestly, I didn't take issue with it back then. I took more issue with how creepy it was. Again, as a kid, like, this one is like, you've got, again, it's like mad horror, survival horror elements, and the dark world is the place. It was creepy as hell. I still think it is. But yeah, they implemented the ammo system, and honestly, I like it. I like it a lot. I don't know if it needs to be in every game or would be necessary for like every beam weapon, but like, clearly they took to it, because it does make a reappearance in Metroid Prime 3, but not for the beams and stuff, but in a way. So yeah, Prime 2 introduces ammo, so your beam could just run out of ammo, which is kind of wild to say and think about, because they never, not even the 2D games really do that for any of the mainline beam weapons you get. Because in the 2D games, actually, that's right, you can't swap. Once you upgrade, it just upgrades the beam entirely, and you just have the one beam. But here in Metroid Prime, all four, you can switch between all the beams, which I already think, now that I think about it, that's innovative too. Like, that's not a mainstay from the 2D games. Like I said, your beams upgrade, and it's just building on the previous one, so you never have to switch and all that, which is kind of, I think, a design choice because of button limitations, like on the SNES and things like that. But yeah, wow, I didn't realize that. Like, just having the ability to swap between the different types of guns, basically, that you have in these games, that's unique to the Prime games. That's really cool. That's really cool. Good job, Retro. That's a good idea. Also, just a hallmark of first-person shooters, having different kinds of guns, but to implement them in that way, it's organic. See, because like those beams, like the wave beam, the plasma beam, and stuff like that, ice, those are all pulling from Metroid. Like, those aren't like, oh, what the hell is this? Like, it was all organic. God damn it, that is a great. I overlooked that. How interesting that is on its own as a game design decision. That's cool. Yeah, so then they go another direction with that, where they have ammo, and I think it works because the dark world is supposed to be a scary, unwelcoming place that you don't lounge around in. Like, this is, horror games, the whole game is like, you're stuck in like a place, right, that you don't belong in and you don't want to be in, and you're trying to survive. That's the whole genre. They implement some of that here with the dark world, where your most effective weapon, you can still use your power beam and even your dark beam, but there is a weapon called the light beam, which is really effective. And the dark beam is actually effective against enemies in the light world, but you're not as in danger in the light world. You're not really thinking about ammo as much because it's your native land. The dark world is not. In the dark world, just being there kills you. Like, it's draining your health constantly. And I think that's probably an element people didn't like too, was kind of like watching your health and stuff. But I think it's cool because it's interesting. It's an interesting game design idea where it's like, what if you just shouldn't be here in this place? Being here was dangerous to your very, life essence. Like, it would drain it. It's like, that's cool. So I find that decision to be cool. I like the atmosphere being dangerous in and of itself. I love that being there is unsettling. Like, the music in all these games are great. Like, I appreciate that even more now too. But like, Metroid Prime 2 specifically has that's one of my favorite soundtracks of all time now. It's my favorite of the 3 games too. And that's saying something because all 3 have stellar soundtracks. But what they do with this soundtrack is what makes the dark world so effective, which is that it's a mirror, it's a reflection of the area you're in. It's literally a dark version of the light world. But when you go there through a portal, for one, you go into a portal, the music stops. So the music, there's always music playing in the background in these games. So in an area that you're in the light world, there'll be a fun boppy tune playing or something with a good, funky beat or whatever. But then you step in the portal and the music goes away entirely. And it's like a loading screen and it's showing her transporting to the other dimension. Then you get to the dark world and it's different. The music is like ambient. It's not the same song or like a twisted version of it. It's like it is creepy. And for a while I didn't really realize it, but I was always like, God, why is this place still so unsettling? Like, I'm not a kid anymore. I know I was scared of it as a kid, but why am I scared of it now? And it took many hours for me to realize, oh, the songs are different. The soundtrack is different here in the dark world. And they did that to great effect. Like, I'm trying to highlight why these games are so... It's easy to critique something, right? And like point out all the negatives, but the positives are something I want to try to highlight too in any reviews I do, which I do want to do. And one of those is just the music just is so effective. And every time you go into that dark world, you are met with an overbearing sense of dread and uneasiness. And a lot of it is, one, knowing what's waiting for you, which is a place that is hostile and unwelcoming to you, literally inhospitable. You're not supposed to be there. The air is toxic. And two is the soundtrack is just like I said, it's heavy. It's just like, it's just creepy and it's just uninviting. And then three is, all right, like it's like a survival horror game where you have to like be conscious, right, of where you're going and what you're doing versus a regular, like 2D Metroidvania just sprinting around the map, right? But here I'm like, okay, where do we go? Like I'm always looking out for these light crystals because when you shoot them, they create a bubble that when you're in it is like a safe room. You don't lose health in there. But they don't last forever either, so you have to keep shooting them after a bit to light it up again. So like it becomes its own little survival horror game in a Metroidvania game while still containing Metroidvania elements while you're there, right? It's not like when you do a stealth segment all of a sudden in a shooter game, you're like, okay, now I'm not even shooting at all. No, you're still doing Metroidvania stuff and platforming and combat and all that, but you're doing it in this strange setting with these different rules and this different vibe and stuff. And yeah, managing your ammo and being very, very aware of your surroundings to make sure that you're navigating them properly and, watching your health and all that because it's depleting when you're not in those bubbles. Like it's all, I think it's an interesting twist on the formula and good introductions. And like if they revisited them, I would be all on board, but it is cool that it's kind of unique to Prime 2. But I'm not like, oh, so I'm so glad it's only in Prime 2 because it was terrible. Like, no, I loved it. I think they did a great job implementing these survival horror elements into their game. And they did I don't know, I have nothing but praise for Prime 2 because again, in terms of core gameplay, it's just building on Prime 1, you still got the same. Like it's a GameCube game still, is the same as the first one. So controls are the same, combat all feels great. The labyrinth is fucking phenomenal. I'm always impressed by Metroidvanias and the labyrinths that people craft for them. So I have no issue with this one. I didn't feel like it was, I wouldn't know. I'm not a designer. I don't think it was poorly designed or anything. I think it's amazing. It doesn't feel like you're retreading the same kind of like puzzles and things like that. Like it all feels fresh and good, and yeah, they just killed it. They knocked it out of the park. I love the third element, which is different from Prime 1, which is the, like I mentioned, the injection of some more character and story. You're not on an abandoned planet anymore or a planet with a dead advanced civilization. You're on a living planet. Most of the people that are living on it, though, are in hibernation for story reasons, but you do meet one who isn't, and his name is Umos. And he'll talk to Samus. He doesn't speak English, so he is talking. He is voiced, but it's it's gobbledygook. It's all translated on screen via text. That's how you mainly take in that data. But yeah, this is a real character who's alive. He's talking to Samus, who's not aggro. It's not a space pirate. And he doesn't follow you around or anything, which is cool. He's just at that one spot, and when you finish, a main objective, you go back, you talk to him, you get an update, and then you go on. Like it's these little interjections of like these milestones in the story that I really value, and which aren't really in Metroid Prime 1 and Metroid Super Metroid and Metroid Zero Mission. Zero Mission has a little bit more of it, but like I do prefer that. I do prefer the Prime 2, Prime 3 Fusion Dread style where we do have characters interacting with Samus and stuff, because she is not an island. She doesn't exist in a vacuum. She's actually a very notable person in the galaxy and works closely with the Galactic Federation made up of people, humans, a lot of humanoids, and they talk to her, and we see that in Prime 3. But Prime 2, I think, finds the right or the best balance between the two, between Prime 3 on the one extreme and Prime 1 on the other, where Prime 1 has none of that stuff and Prime 3 has a lot of it. Like, it has a lot of it. But again, not to the degree where I thought it was battering. Like, this isn't an MGS4 situation where like MGS3 is great. MGS4 is also great, except when you can not play it because it's just cutscenes all the freaking time. Like, it's not to that extreme. They still do a great job there too. It's still a game first and foremost. But Prime 2 really is like, you get the ambiance and you get those breaks in the ambiance that I appreciate very much. And I realize now is this like the part of the ingredients for a perfect Metroid game for me. I don't like being completely left alone and to my own devices and isolated from society and the world, like like I said, Metroid, Super Metroid, and like Prime Remastered and stuff. I prefer having someone else around, some story stuff that, milestones and things like that. So yeah, nothing but praise for Prime 2. One of my favorite games of all time now. I always had a soft spot for it because I remember I got the strategy guide. I was hyped for it. I love the covers, the dark and the light, like the holographic cover for the game was cool. But by the end of it, when I got to the last area during this recent playthrough, I wasn't experiencing a lot of deja vu. And that's because I don't think I ever beat this game. Like, maybe I got stuck somewhere. I was a kid, I was young at the time. Or maybe it was just too scary, to go any further, and I was just too intimidated. But yeah, I didn't recognize any of the stuff happening in the final area. So I'm like, am I beating this game for the first time right now? And I think I did. And I did beat it, and it was great. And I nothing but praise for it. Nothing but praise for 1, but more praise for 2. But man, even then, even though Prime 2 is my favorite of the 3 and one of my favorite games and Metroid games of all time, Prime 3 takes the cake. Like, easily, hands down, the best intro in a Metroid game, and possibly besides Breath of the Wild and the Great Plateau, possibly the greatest intro, like opening hour of any game I've ever played. Like, this is what I'm saying with Retro. Like, if Retro hadn't developed these games, I don't think we'd get anywhere near the games that we got. Like, this wasn't like, oh, Retro was kind of like providing support, and then there was like, creatives and Intel over at Nintendo calling the shots. Like, this is clearly of outside design, because I do not think Nintendo in-house Nintendo made Metroid Prime games would have turned out like 2 and 3, because 3 is a goddamn sci-fi blockbuster movie. It is so cool. I mean, there's full-blown voice acting, there's English like being spoken left and right, like even characters that aren't humanoids from Earth that would probably speak English are speaking English, and like there's other hunters and stuff, and I totally forgot how this game played out and what was to come. I wish I had recorded my reaction, because I was floored. I was like, damn, this is crazy. Amazing opening. I loved it so much. I mean, like, they were going for, all the chips. You know, it's the climactic finish to the trilogy, and they don't buckle under the pressure either, which is impressive. Again, nothing but praise for these goddamn games. They just made it look easy. It's like, yeah, just make a trilogy as good as this. What's so hard you know, what's so hard about that, guys? It's easy, right? It's like, no, they showed that it can be if you're retro and you're working on Metroid, because it's just like a match made in heaven. But like, they took leaps with this one too. They pushed the envelope in ways I don't think the core Metroid team or core creatives on the series would do. Maybe it's the Western, you know, element of it. Retro is a Western. It's a U.S. studio. Maybe there's some of that influence, you know. But like, it is, like I said, it is like a blockbuster movie. And tonally, it's a completely different. Like, forget like the ambiance of like, oh, solo Samus out there. She is a Galactic Federation soldier for all intents and purposes. She has a voice in the ear, which already for some might have been a bridge too far. Like, oh, this game sucks. I can't do this. I didn't mind it. I still appreciate the ambiance. I still think Prime 2 is the perfect balance, though. Like, nothing against what was going on, because it's not just like someone chirping, you know. It's not like having that companion who's with you all the time going, oh, what's that, you know, or, you know, like Samus talking to her too. Like, you're still walking around and Samus is just minding her own business. She ain't talking up a storm. But like, she is a critical component in a much larger, grander scheme involving many other players, and it feels that way, and it's really cool. And again, like, gameplay wise, just perfect. Like, the designs of the new areas, the fact that they went big and had like multiple planets, was really cool. But I think that actually is the only element that I don't love as much. And again, not because they did it wrong. Like, the planets are perfectly labyrinthian, you know, it's still Metroidvania exploration and stuff on each one. But I think after playing them all, I do realize I like being entrenched in one place, you know. But I understand why they went this way for this one. It just made sense. They're going big, and you know, you've got this galactic problem at hand, you know, so you're gonna naturally have multiple planets and races involved, and it's of consequence to so many people. Like, how could you not expand the scope this way? And with that expansion, I think they just nailed it. They just killed it. And like, they were doing it all with the new control scheme too, and some new mechanics introduced with that control scheme. Like, again, nothing but praise. Music is phenomenal. The labyrinth, again, all the maze stuff, the platforming, everything feels great. The shooting is better than ever, you know. Like, I love the GameCube controls. I find them unique and novel. But I mean, you got a straight up light gun. You know, you're pointing at the screen. It's all super responsive. You got the grapple lasso ripping fucking aliens apart, like ripping shields off people. It's fucking awesome. Like, they were like, we got action. We got the tools to make a proper like first person shooter now. We don't have just not only a second stick, we have the best aiming possible on a home console. We're going to use it, and they designed enemies with that in mind too. There's some enemies where it's like they form a wall, and you have to shoot specific points in there to break through it. You know, like, it's so good. You know, god damn it, these games are amazing. Like, I don't know how I went so long under appreciating them for what they are. They're special, man. The Prime games are so good, and that doesn't devalue or lower my love for the 2D games. 2D Metroidvanias are still my fucking jam. Like, I love all of them, but these are special. I'm not a first person guy. I'm not a first person shooter guy. So I should be bouncing off of these, but I'm not, because they do so much more, and they're so special in so many other ways. Oh my god, they're so good. And this trilogy is great. Like, what a great ending. You know, like, I love the Spider-Man trilogy. There's some things they could have changed in Spider-Man 3. But I was like everybody else, just like super hyped. That was an event. That was like a national event, dude. It was so big. But oh my god. Yeah, I'm so glad I revisited them. I just wish I had took my time a bit. Like, not because I didn't 100 play them properly. I 100%ed all 3 of them on these replays. But I also overestimated how long it was going to take. Like, at their most, with 100%ing on a first run, you're looking at like 20, 25 hours at most. So I got through these like more than a month before, Prime 4 came out, and that's way too long. So yeah, just a little note for me, like something I learned going forward is, something I'm already implementing for something else. I'll actually discuss this in a later video for something else I plan to be doing. But yeah, I definitely played through these too quickly, especially because there's just so much. Like, Retro puts so much thought. Again, that's another element I overlooked, is they put so much thought into the lore of these worlds, and just the creatures. Every creature has a very detailed entry about like how they, their biology and interact with the environment, and like it's overkill, honestly, in a way. Like, they don't need to have detailed flavor text for all these things, but they do, and it's just that extra mile they go, and how effortlessly and expertly they do so, that it's just impressive. Like, looking back on these games, it's like, dude, these are insane games. They're so awesome and so special. And now we're getting a new entry in Prime 4, and the hype is through the roof. Like, it was already like, damn, new Metroid, let's go. But again, like I said, I was on the fence with this one because of some worries I've already mentioned, but now they're gone. Like, I'm like, I just want more. And it's in fucking, like, it's flexing the power of the Switch too. It's a 60 FPS, 120. We got the control schemes. It's the first, it's the newest Metroid Prime game since 2007. Like, there's gonna be, it's an event. It's a big deal. And yeah, playing through these games, now I have more context about them and sort of what I am kind of expecting and wanting and hope we haven't seen, but we'll see in the next game. So let's go into them now. So gameplay elements I hope return in Prime 4 that were featured in Primes 1 through 3. The first one is from Prime 3, and it is called the Grapple Lasso. And this is an ability you would use with your nunchuck in your left hand. And of course, nowadays we have both consoles, the Switch and the Switch 2, have Wii Remote and nunchuck-like controllers in the form of the left and right Joy-Con, which can be played separately from each other, like the Wii Remote and nunchuck. So I see no reason, and also I'm pretty sure we saw it in the second trailer, or the trailer for the release date, where she grapple lassos some fucking container and rips it open. I'm like, oh baby. And plus with that HD Rumble 2, oh, because the nunchuck doesn't have rumble in it, or maybe mine's busted and it used to, but you don't get that. You don't get that resistance or like that tension from like rumble or something. And I would be incredibly disappointed if we do get it, but we don't get rumble, like a reaction from the controller, from the Joy-Con 2 when using the grapple lasso, because I'm pretty sure it's in the game. It's a super fun component. And I mean, if you got the controls to be able to do it, freaking do it. I don't know how it translates to handheld mode. Maybe they just map it to a button. I could see them doing that. But yeah, grapple lasso from Prime 3, nothing but praise. That shit's cool. Bring it back. Then number 2, we got just a simple one, but one that shouldn't be overlooked, which is multiple control options. Like from Prime Remastered, where we got the classic GameCube, we got some kind of hybrid thing I still don't really understand fully. Then we got just straight up twin stick controls. And then we got Wii Remote implementation, which I thought was a bigger deal than it actually is, because it actually was implemented back in Prime Trilogy on the Wii. But I totally forgot about that trilogy. I never picked it up, which is a shame. But yeah, so they already had that, and they put them all together, and now you have like 4, but I guess mainly 3 distinct ways to play Metroid Prime Remastered. And this one's a little different because we've already seen Samus using her hand on screen, or like to control the reticle, the pointer, in a very nuanced way, which I think would require at the very least gyro, right? So like just the GameCube control scheme probably isn't valid, so it might not even be an option to play just the classic GameCube control way. Maybe they do have a hybrid way to implement that, but I would love to play as much of it as possible with the classic GameCube control scheme. But if it's not possible because it's building off of Metroid Prime 3, which was all motion control based, then that's fine too. I just wonder how that would translate to handheld mode, because I'm going to capture the whole playthrough on desktop or TV mode, but I do also want to replay it in handheld. Hopefully it is playable in handheld mode. But yeah, I'm just hoping there's, multiple control options. There probably won't be the same ones again because of like mouse mode and any requisites from her psychic abilities and things like that. But yeah, it was good to see that, and I hope to see it again. The third thing is kind of a spoiler for Prime 3, but later on in the game, you do get something you don't get, I think, from any other Metroid game. Maybe from like Samus Returns and Dread, this is a thing. But in Prime 3, towards the dead-ass end of the game, you do some things, and then you unlock the ability to see collectibles in the environment. And not like with the visor or anything, like literally, but on the map. So basically, a beacon gets sent out, and all of a sudden your map for that world gets updated. And it has like dots and X's on that map now, showcasing things you haven't found. Like their specific spot in the map and things you have found. And I think that's really cool. There's probably a better way to do it. I don't know. I haven't actually thought about it much, but I think that is cool. That, or the option to like have a percentage counter for like the room maybe, or like a distinct area. Be like, okay, this biome, you've collected 70%, something like that. But something on those in that vein. Like this option is cool too, where they show you the exact spot. But I think there's some people who'll be like, well, I don't want to know exactly where it is, or maybe you do, because like in the end of Prime 3, I was kind of like, I almost wanted to skip going for 100% because I was just so invested in like the story and the pacing of it. I was like, I don't know if I want to just backtrack a bunch and deviate, because I'm kind of feeling the tension and the drive of this late game story stuff. So I was pushed to skip 100%ing, but it was like, oh, I could see exactly where these things are. So I guess I'll just go pick up the last few that I'm missing. So I did like it. I just wonder if there's a alternative ways you can do it, maybe multiple ways in one game, or a better way. I don't know. But it was a cool thing, and I'd like to see that come back. Then a controller feature, which is morph ball hopping, which is a mechanic too, because traditionally in Metroid games, I think in 2D games you can bounce. I keep forgetting if that's a thing or not. But in Prime 3, and then retroactively added to Prime Remastered and Prime 2 via the Wii Trilogy, is the ability to make your morph ball jump. So otherwise, if you wanted the morph ball to reach higher ground, or a little slot that's above the morph ball, you would need to bomb jump. So you plant the bomb, and then the bomb explodes and shoots you up. But with Prime 3 and the Wii remote, you could flick the remote up and the ball would just hop up. It's really cool, and you could do it in Prime Remastered, even in handheld mode, very reliably if you tweak some of the sensitivity settings a bit. And I like it. It doesn't break anything. It does make some things easier, obviously, because you don't have to wait for the bomb to blow up and stuff. But yeah, other than streamlining and being pretty optional, like this is something you could, if people don't like it, it'd be nice if they could just toggle it on and off in the settings. But if it is crucial to gameplay, but even then, standard morph ball bomb jumping works too. It accomplishes the same thing. So actually, I changed my mind. You could just make it a setting to turn on and off, so people who like it can use it, and people who don't have to. But yeah, they should bring that back. It's really funny. Just flicking the remote or the Joy-Con, and then the morph ball pops up. It's really fun. Then the next one is also from Prime 3. So Prime 3 doing some cool stuff. Like I said, they did a lot of cool stuff. I kind of want to break down some of the more nitty gritty like details of those things in a later time, but maybe in a proper review. The option to bookmark rooms of interest on the map. So this is something you could do in Prime 3, maybe 2. I don't think so, but basically when you're exploring the map in the map screen, you can highlight different areas when you're scanning through it. It just does it naturally. But in this game, you could actually press the A button and you would be given the option to bookmark the room and turn it green. So like, I don't know, maybe you're just you deviate from the path and you forget exactly where you wanted to go, what room you wanted to reach. You just open the map and all of a sudden your map, which is all the rooms are in orange, there will be that one room that's just glowing green and you're like, "Oh, okay, that's the place I wanted to go visit for whatever reason." And then you go there, you know? So that's a cool feature. It's a cool navigation feature, especially for Prime. These maps, they're three-dimensional and they can get when they have layers to them, especially a Prime Remastered has some of that where one of the areas has like multiple layers. It's hard to explain. It's easier to show it or experience it. It gets a little weird to navigate and look at. So a bookmark feature like that does help. And then the last one is the option to change HUD and helmet visibility settings, and also to turn off background music. I think all the games already have those baked in. So I want to see them come back. Like I was playing Prime Remastered and just fucking just relishing in those remastered visuals. And yeah, I found myself, I turned off the helmet. So like the little portions that make up her visor, you can just completely remove that to see more of the environment on screen, and also the HUD itself. So like the holographic elements that show like your health and your ammo and stuff. Obviously turning that off completely is detrimental because you can't see how many missiles you have left, how much health you have. So I always put that on like the lowest setting so you could barely see it. But like being able to do that so you can see all the beautiful visuals in the environment unobscured, I think is really cool. So I hope that makes a return. And also like I said with Prime 1, I just turned off the music and vibed and explored and just, it's just vibing. I want to be able to do that again in this game if I ever feel like doing that. So being able to turn the music off completely is a good thing. Every game should have that in general. But yeah, so I hope that comes out here too. So the next topic has to do with innovations, additions, and changes I would like to see in Metroid Prime 4. I think I mentioned this already. When using the grapple lasso, if it's in there, which it's all but confirmed it's in there from that second trailer, is rumble. Just some feedback because I really do like how the HD Rumble 2 feels in the new Joy-Con 2. So any sort of feedback from the controllers while using the grapple lasso would be really cool, because that was the only thing that was like, it was very visibly like it was missing when playing Metroid Prime 3, was like, yeah, there's no give or take or any sort of feedback from the nunchuck when using the grapple lasso, and it really felt like it was missing and it was like wrong, like it didn't feel right. But otherwise, yeah, that would just be a plus. And it could be something, in the options you can turn on and off, unless it is like a gameplay mechanic where you have to like sort of like find the right place while pulling back and forward and stuff. That could be a thing too, actually. So I guess in that case, it wouldn't be optional. You really do need the HD Rumble in order to do certain actions with the grapple lasso, or a mechanic using her left hand correctly. But yeah, that'd be cool. The next one is, I think, the biggest one, not just for Prime 4, but for all Metroidvanias going forward, which is the ability to attach screenshots to the in-game map for easier backtracking. And this is something I first experienced. I can't say definitively if this game is the first game that does it, but Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, was my first experience with a feature like this, and this is legitimately a game changer. Isn't even, that's underselling it. This is like Breath of the Wild level of like, oh, this rethinks, like this repositions, reframes, whatever, the way we look at this genre or this certain mechanic. Like with Metroidvanias, having that, it wasn't what made the game like one of my favorite Metroidvanias, but it's a factor, right? It's how it is with masterpieces and 10 out of 10s and things. It's like everything It's always firing on all cylinders. And this is one of those features of that game that helps take it and helped put it over the edge for me into my, like, I'd say top 5 Metroidvanias, unless it gets pushed out by like Prime 4 or something. But like, it is a fantastic Metroidvania, and one of the many reasons why it is because of this feature it has. And so the way it works, and it's not as important a feature nowadays, specifically on Switch and any other console that takes screenshots, which I'm pretty sure is all of them. What happens is, in the game itself, in Prince of Persia, you get these tokens, basically. It's like a currency. You have a limited number of them. So let's say 10. I don't remember exactly how many. It's been a while since I played it. But using that, you can then use it to spend on taking a screenshot that is basically tacked onto that room on the map. So like when you're, you played a Metroidvania, you're scrolling across the screen, looking at the map, highlighting rooms. When you highlight a room that has a screenshot attached to it, guess what it does? You can select it and blow up the picture and see, okay, so that's the kind of obstacle or door or whatever it was, or maybe even like an item that's behind something, right? Like, you can just see very easily and quickly what it is that you need to get past that obstacle or to get to the item in question, because that's just Metroidvania 101. Like, you're gonna see things that you can't access, you're gonna come across doors that you can't open until later in the game, and this makes it so much easier, like with the backtracking and stuff, even better than like, and I would still take this too, just like the option to place icons on the map. That's not something you can do in an older game like Metroid Fusion, for instance, but these, like, those two things are not even in the Prime games, you can't place like icons on the map and stuff. Like I say, you can highlight the map, but it highlights a whole room, and it doesn't, other than that, unless you have a really good memory, you probably will forget what it was about that room that you like, why you highlighted it and what you need to get to go back there and proceed or to unlock something. So this is just like an easy way, but I will give, I don't even know if this is a tip, if you have the screenshot function like you do on Switch and Switch 2, what I like to do in place of a feature like this when it's not present in a Metroidvania is to take a picture of the screen, just like I would, or you would in Prince of Persia Pop Crown, and then also afterwards, right after, take a picture of the map itself. So like in my folder for that game on Switch, if I just search specifically for that game and filter out everything else, I'll just see a series of like the map and then a picture of like an in-game screenshot and then the map, and I can just go in there and flip through them all and be like, okay, so these are spots that I wanted to return to. And so that I already do this, in lieu of a system existing in game, but I really would prefer if it was something that existed in the game already, as it does in Pop Crown, because it really is awesome. And I would be surprised if I haven't played Hollow Knight Silksong yet. I would be surprised if it didn't have something like that. I don't remember. I mean, yeah, Hollow Knight's a Metroidvania. It's got gating and stuff like that, so I'm sure it needs it. I wonder if they implemented it, because I think it's something that needs to become a standard. Unfortunately, Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown didn't like take off and become part of the overall like in-house discourse in gaming. So a feature like this is probably still not even known to a lot of developers and fans of the genre that it exists, but they probably know they want it, and I think honestly, every Metroidvania, even a 3D one like this, they would all benefit. This is a good thing. And also it's an optional thing too, right? Like most of these innovations, additions, and changes are things that you can choose to use or utilize or not. Yeah, this is one of those where it's like in Prince of Persia, it actually sucks that it's limiting a bit. Like I said, you actually do have a certain number that you can use, and then you I guess you find more tokens and you can take more screenshots and tack them to rooms on the map. But I would prefer if it's just unlimited, or close to that, where it's like Breath of the Wild, or Tears of the Kingdom, they give you 300 icons that you can tack onto the map, and I think most people didn't hit the limit. So like, Something like that. I'll take either one, because right now in the Prime games, like I said, you can't even put like little icons like with like a like imagine if there was an icon like those map tokens in Breath of the Wild where it's like a little missile, right? And then you put that on that room, be like, okay, so just at a glance, you look at the map, you're like, okay, over there is a missile expansion that I couldn't get, but I could hear it, or I know it's there. And then over here is like, you got an icon for like green, like a green door, and it just makes it easier. They already do that in the game where they'll highlight the doors even if you don't even know what is needed to unlock it, but on the map it'll show like a white door or a green door, but like, just things that make it easier. I don't think they're that much of an ask, and they really do better the experience. So I would love to see that. The next thing is also regarding like the map and its navigation. And this is something I already alluded to, which is that the maps in Metroid Prime, they're 3D when you're looking at them, so you can turn them, look at them kind of like a Rubik's Cube. But when they kind of lose their usefulness when you're looking at an area that has multiple layers, because the map is also translucent. So you'll see through one layer to another, and it's tough to explain. You could just kind of look at it in the games or in some video online. I find it to be a little lacking and not to be the sort of best case scenario for a 3D map like this. So even if I've been through an area multiple times, if I'm trying to get, to point B, I oftentimes will be like, I'll just keep checking the map, because, it's a labyrinth, it's a maze. And also to bring this up, the mini map in the top right corner in all three Prime games is borderline useless, because you can't change how far, like the zoom in of it. So it's pretty much always like zoomed in on the room you're in, and the map itself doesn't show fine detail of the room. It's like if you're in a squarish room, the map on the mini map and in your map screen, it's just going to be like a square room. It doesn't have the fine details of the room. So it's not like, oh, I can see there's like a crevice in the corner right there or something. Like it's not really helpful. I never use the map in the corner. I never bother looking at it because of that. But with something like an on-screen arrow, which I know this is in other games, this is not a new feature or a new idea, but it is something that would be very new to the Prime games, and I feel like a lot of people would not like this, where it's just an arrow on the like top center of the screen kind of just pointing which way to go. But again, just like an optional thing, there's sometimes where I know exactly where I want to go, but I forget the exact, way to get there. And many rooms have multiple doors and they're layered, there's verticality to these locations, and it could just get, confusing. And I'm like, I don't want to be stuck checking the in-game map, pressing minus or pause, whatever, to go and check and back and check and back. So this is like an evolution of the highlight feature that is in Prime 3, where you can highlight a room on the map. Well, what if when you do that, you can also set it to, I don't know, navigation mode or track? Again, optional. I'm not saying this has to be in it and everybody has to use it, but like optional. And when you do that, now all of a sudden you see a little icon on your HUD, and it's an arrow, and it's just kind of, pointing you in the direction of which way you should go. And it might not even be the most optimal path, because there's usually sometimes multiple paths to get to the same room, but at least it gets you there, right? So that would be cool. I don't expect it to be there. I would love it if it was, though, because yeah, I have found that in like towards like the end of the game, when I'm really backtracking and stuff, I find myself just getting kind of discombobulated or whatever, and having some kind of navigation system like that to help me get to a specific point that I know I want to get to, and I'm not just wandering around aimlessly. An arrow like that would be very, very helpful. All right, so this one actually wasn't on my list, but now that I've talked about navigation and that arrow system and attaching screenshots and all that, I remember now, I've been reminded that I would like more fast travel, especially playing Prime Remastered, the first Metroid Prime, and even Prime 2. Like, you do have elevators, but they serve a distinct purpose of getting you from one area to another. But it's not exactly fast travel, right? Like those are points on the maps that are literally connected to each other. But fast travel, what I mean by that is kind of like straight up science fiction, like warping, right? Like from one end of the map to another end. And this is going to lean into a problem or something I will address in a little bit that's related to this to just help with backtracking and stuff. But, or I'll cover it next. But yeah, fast travel. And I didn't even think of it as such in Metroid Prime 3. You do actually get something close to fast travel, which is the ability to summon your ship and then use it to land on other landing pads. And there are very set ones. It's not like you can clear out an area and make any open space a landing pad. They're very distinct places on each map. But like, yeah, if you are on one planet and you make it to a land, you find a new landing pad, from there you can just go ahead and fly to a landing pad on a different planet or a landing pad on that same planet, right? It is an evolution. It is fast travel, I guess so. But yeah, I don't think they can or they will be able to use that in Prime 4 because I'm guessing theory. The reason she has a bike is because she doesn't have her ship. So like they want to implement fast travel, but they can't because the things that got transported to this other place or this other time, I don't know exactly where she got transported, but Planet Viros, where you're spending the game, she doesn't have her ship, but like it would be weird to backtrack and go from having fast travel like we did in Prime 3 to not having it. And actually, I didn't realize it, but like looking up stuff, yeah, Prime 3 would be the first instance in the Metroid series where fast travel was even possible, but has now become a mainstay in the 2D games even. So like in the game the first 2D game, the next 2D game that came out after Prime 3 years later, which was Samus Returns, you can fast travel in that. And it's just straight up warping. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like an elevator that takes you to the other area you were just at. Like, this is warping to a completely separate, far away area in a manner that is, a little nonsensical, right? But in terms of backtracking, is super welcome. Like, it just is. So I wouldn't mind it. I would love that in Metroid Prime 4 because it is not just a unique thing to the first person Metroid games, but it is now like kind of a constant and a new welcomed element, sanctioned element by Sakamoto himself, the producer of the Metroid series, in the mainline 2D game. So it's on the table. It's a mechanic they seem to be okay with. And yeah, I just hope it makes a return in Prime 4. And the way I'm theorizing it, if we're going to go into that, is that these open areas, like we saw one in the second trailer, the release date reveal trailer, where you go on the bike and it's a vast desert. My theory is that is the replacement in some instances for the elevators to make it kind of interesting to traverse and to highlight that you are exploring in part of a big world, right? It's not just a bunch of narrow corridors and somewhat big rooms. Like you are transitioning between these massive biomes across, potentially a whole country or continent. And riding on your bike and seeing it for yourself is one way to show that. But I think what happens in like that desert instance is you start from one place and you've entered the desert for the first time, right? Now you explore it, and once you get to a door out there that takes you to a corridor, you get eventually the option through somewhere nearby there to now warp. So you don't have to ride on your bike between that point and the point you came from again and back and forth, right, while backtracking and stuff. I think it's something that they're not going to burden people who don't want to use it with. It'll just be a fun, like a change of pace from the usual walking around and exploring and stuff. You get on the bike and or maybe you can even walk around in the desert. I don't know for sure if you can even get off the bike in that instance, but I think it's going to be less cumbersome and less of a problem than some people are making it out to be. I'm surprised because I thought that shit was cool. Like I am 100% on board with that open area, like wild zone aspect that they're introducing and the way you engage with it, which is with the fucking motorcycle. Like that's so cool. But yeah, I foresee you not needing to get on the bike and travel through that desert to get from point B to A and then back from A to B again and again. Like once you get through to B, you will find some kind of warp system and you can then use that instead, right? But for the first time through, you got to get on the bike. You got to go through the desert. That's how I think it's going to work. And even if it doesn't, I don't mind it, because I literally, one of my favorite games of last year was Star Overdrive. The whole game is you riding a hoverboard, surfing along the dunes of a planet that is entirely made up of dunes, and you're on the hoverboard if you want to be the entire time doing tricks and stuff. And I fucking loved it. It was the best. I'll go over that at a later point. But yeah. And the next one is, yeah, I like I said, I have my copies of Metroid Prime 2 and 3, but let's just say I experienced them a different way than the traditional way. And I was able to make use of something known as save states, which is now a common thing known not just to certain crowds, but also to normies. Like if you use NSO, then you have probably used save states, because you can use that while playing these older games. And yeah, I haven't played a bunch of Metroidvanias in a short span, so I can't say for sure like how common this is, but I know some Metroidvanias nowadays, even like within the last 2 years, still utilize the old school save system. Just like you go to a room and you save your game there, and if you die between that save room and the next one, you are sent all the way back to that one, right? And some games have that, where they have the save rooms, but they still have like an invisible checkpoint system where even if you do die before you find a new save room, you're not sent all the way back. That's cool. Not as cool as save states. I'm sorry. I really don't like. I've actually soured on like the classic Mega Man format, where it's like you go through a whole level, right? And then after finally doing all that, you can get to the boss. And then depending on how many lives you lost, you get 1, 2, maybe 3 attempts at fighting the boss. And if you lose after all 3 and you lose all your lives, guess what? You gotta go all the way back to the beginning of the level, start over. That's why I think Cuphead was so great, because it separated the two, where you had the traditional run and gun levels and it would end, and that was it. That was the run and gun level. And then you had the bosses, and I love that. I think they flipped that genre, or that specific niche, on its head too, that game design mechanic, because I think it's better. I think it's just way better. Like if I'm fighting a boss and it's tough as nails, I want to be able to just keep going, like again, like keep learning the patterns. I don't want to then be like, oh, sent back to the beginning of the run and gun level, and I got to go through all that and be perfect at that. Like I've proven already on multiple occasions I can do this level. It's just old school like difficulty mentality, where it's like, no, you need to be perfect at the level, and then you need to spend a ton. It's like it's really a cost, like the opposite of cost saving measure, right? It's a way of padding the game, where it's like, oh yeah, you want to learn how to fight this boss, play the level again, buddy. It's like, okay, even though I've done it a bunch of times, I've shown you I can do it, and with save states now, if you're playing a classic Mega Man game, haven't revisited the Legacy Collection, but I will soon, as I'm going to mention in a different video. I'm pretty sure after doing a level, like if you had a good run and you still have like most of your lives or all of them, just put down a save state right at the boss's door. And now even if you burn through all 3 lives and you still don't beat him, you just load up your save state and then you play him again with all of your lives again. You don't get sent back. And I think in a Metroidvania where you've done all this backtracking, or you've made good like progress and you've progressed far, but you didn't make it to a save room before dying, and now you get sent all the way back and got to make your way back, that you just go through all these corridors and rooms that you just went through. I think it's a drag. I think it's a huge drag. And even like in the games, like I said, where they have invisible checkpoints, where like, okay, you don't get sent back all the way, just a couple rooms back. That doesn't work when you turn the game off. The save rooms still have a purpose, wherein you will restart when you boot up the game again, you will be sent back to a save room, your last one. So even if you did make that progress in your previous playthrough, and let's say something happened, like the game crashed, even though you passed a few invisible checkpoints, when you boot it up again, you're still gonna, you get sent back to the save room, not those checkpoints. And it's like, let's just do away with it, because replaying the Prime games, I didn't feel like I lost anything. using save states. I really didn't. I was just like, this is great. Oh, I need to do something real quick. I just, save state and I go do a thing for a few hours and then I come back. I'm exactly where I was. It's great. Like, I don't know how else to say it. It's a net positive. And I think I've heard someone in a podcast, I try to avoid it, but I still listen to gaming podcasts and sometimes I'll offhand mention things about games of the moment. And there was a mention of the save rooms or whatever. And so they might be making a return in Prime 4, but that's unfortunate. I really do think we should just have regular, just save anywhere you want. Like, I'm playing through the demo of Daemon X Machina, and you just save wherever you are. And when you reload the game, you're exactly where you were doing what you were doing. It's great. I love it. I don't want to backtrack and needlessly redo things that I did if I don't have to, and in this day and age, we really don't have to anymore. We don't have the fucking passwords where it's like a fucking a 10 key code and you put that in. We're past that now. So let's get modern and a little bit more friendly to people and more respectful of people's time. If someone wants to do it the old way, then give them that option too. But where you have the save rooms and they can work with that old school method. But also, if you don't want to do that, just let people save manually whenever they want. I think that's the way to go. And the next mechanic is something kind of big and something they didn't show in either of the trailers I've seen. Maybe they do in another one, or maybe it is a feature in this game, but none of the 3D Prime games have something that all the 2D games have, which is the ability for Samus to run. And I mean, even in Super Metroid, where you could argue the physics of it and how come she's a little floatier and slower is due to it's like trying to emulate the weight and heft of the Chozo suit. That goes out the window in like Dread and Fusion. And even I think Samus Returns, where Samus is booking it. Like, she's pumping those arms. Like, this has been a thing in the 2D games, even in Zero Mission, actually, where but that suit's a little bit more svelte. It's not the full-blown Various suit yet. But we have seen her run. She does this in the 2D games all the time. She even gets the speed boost where she straight up runs like fucking the Flash, She goes super fast. So, like, it's not an alien or unapproved feature by Sakamoto. Metroid games have this. The 3D ones do not. The first person ones do not. And I can understand why, but we have first person shooters where it's a first person shooter. You got the gun and you're on screen all the time. You can see that, but you can still sprint, like sprinting in a first person shooter is not an alien mechanic. It's not new. It's not controversial. Yet the Prime games never utilized it. And yeah, there's a lot of verticality in the levels, and it's not like you'd get very far without having to jump or anything like that or coming up on an obstacle. But at the same time, I don't think that sort of justifies or necessitates not having like running or sprinting, because I mean, she doesn't have a sprint or stamina gauge in the 2D game, so she's just moving at her fastest run speed, again pumping her arms like sprinting style, like as far as she can. Like, she could just keep going. She's an athlete. She's like a superhuman, So especially when backtracking and stuff, if this game, I felt this mostly in Prime 1 and Prime 2, where we don't have fast travel at all. And it's like, okay, I got to go all the way to this elevator and then from there go all the way over there to get to that one place I want to get to. You're just slowly, like going across the whole map. You're like, just nothing, man. No jogging, no sprinting. It's one speed. I mean, at times I would resort to morph ball mode to use the speed boost and like to try to like zoom across rooms and stuff, because it's just, in certain instances, it's not fast enough. And I think we've seen it. We know how to do sprinting in a first person shooter. It would be cool to see sprinting in this game, because I think it would work well in tandem with another 2D mechanic that has really come into fruition in the last 2D Metroid games, Samus Returns and Dread, which is melee attacks. And I mean, I think, yeah, we've seen this. Like, this is a first person staple, like with boomer shooters and stuff, like Doom and whatnot. Like, he has melee weapons you can use. We've done all these things. We've seen how to do these now. Like, the original Prime games came out during, sort of the early era, the early days of first person shooting and all that. But even by Prime 3, first person shooting had already established itself and had done interesting things by then. It had challenged the norms and introduced game design mechanics that weren't there in the earliest moments of first person shooting. So yeah, I think it's time like for Metroid, like third person or 3D first person Metroid to adapt and adopt some of these mechanics. And running around, having the ability to sprint is one of them, and another one is the melee stuff, because again, it's a sanctioned thing. This wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, it's not Metroid anymore if she can smack people with her arm cannon or punch them. She punches in Smash. I mean, I know Smash isn't canon to any of the other games and universes it's referencing, really, but like, she has done this. She did this in the last 2D game that just came out a few years ago. She can smack enemies, and then from there, after stunning them a bit, do like a follow-up shot. And even if it's not something legit, like literally like her smacking enemies that are close by with her arm cannon or her fist, or maybe like a psychic ability, like she could do force pushing now probably, right? So now that I think about it, like this is the time to do melee stuff, because she could at least do something related to her her psychic abilities. At least have the option for a short range fist punching like attack. And by that, I mean like a shotgun. Like just something close that just boom, can push an enemy's back and comes out quick, but doesn't have great range, like a shotgun. Like wouldn't it be sick if one of the beam weapons was a freaking shotty, a shotgun blast type thing? That'd be sick. That'd be new for Prime, and that would be fresh. And this is going to lean into sort of my theories about this game and from my vibes, what I'm reading from it from the latest trailer, or the last one I saw. But I'll go into that in a little bit later. As for the last innovation, addition, and change I would like to see in Prime 4, this is something I'm not worried about, because like I said, Retro has been really good about pushing the envelope and really trying to differentiate each of these games from each other, so you don't feel like you're just doing and unlocking and seeing the same things again. Because Metroidvania is honestly, Hollow Knight getting that big DLC that turned into a sequel, that's not something we see very often, because it is tough to come up with a whole new suite of interesting upgrades and story beats and stuff and maps and all that to make sequels for a specific franchise. Like it's a big ask. And the fact that Metroid has been able to do this over, what is it, 8 entries, I think, like 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, like the 3D games and the 2D games, we're at 8 right now, and then Other M is its own thing. It's like both of them actually, right? It's like 2D and 3D. I do have to play it at some point. I don't want to, but I think I have to. They've managed to keep Metroid relevant and fresh in a genre where just reiterating it's because like Castlevania even like straight up changes the protagonist, right? And like they managed to find ways to introduce new mechanics through that conceit, right? Like, oh, it's a different person, so like we can introduce totally new abilities for them, versus here in Metroid where it's just Samus. So yeah, we do get a lot of retreading of old territory when it comes to like, all right, missile expansions, let's go. Seeker missiles, let's go. Ice missile, like there's a lot of mainstays that reoccur and appear again and again and again. And I think Retro has done a great job of trying to subvert the norms with each game in all 3 Prime games. And I would like to go into detail on that, probably in official reviews for each one, so I won't do it here. But yeah, new types of abilities, which is like the psychic stuff seen in Prime 4. I would just like to see them continue to innovate and push the envelope for what Metroid is, right? And what can be in a Metroid game, and for what Samus can do. And yeah, so this has already been kind of addressed, I think, with the psychic stuff. So far in the trailers, the 2 trailers I saw, we didn't see any crazy psychic stuff. I think she's using psychic stuff to shoot those barbs or like harpoons from the bike while she's riding on it, unless the bike itself is generating those, but I think it's harnessing her psychic energy. So already we're seeing them do interesting things where like she's using Samus Aran is riding a bike and powering it with psychic energy to shoot psychic spears at flying enemies in a space desert. You know, like this is where we are. You know, like I tell that to my, much younger self. I don't know what he would think or believe. But like, yeah, already they're doing interesting things, and I know everybody clowned on how like you can use psychic abilities to open doors. Like, oh cool, yeah, we can open doors with these. Hell yeah, let's do it. Like, but I think they're gonna do some interesting things, and I just hope to see them keep things fresh. Because even the 2D games, like Samus Returns, they had the Aeon abilities, and in Dread you have like, I think they're Aeon abilities too. I forget what they're called. But it's stuff aside from just the beams and the missiles and morph ball stuff. Things that keep things fresh for a franchise that is as long running as this one and as successful and as good as this one. It's tough to keep catching lightning in a bottle to make these games interesting and work and stuff like that. But they keep doing it. So yeah, that as far as I can think of, these are the sort of innovations, additions, and changes I would like to see in Prime 4. Real quick, just run over them. Rumble when using grapple lasso, the ability to attach screenshots to the in-game map for easier backtracking, on-screen arrow navigation when backtracking, optional of course, fast travel, making a return and utilized in this game, something akin to save states or just manual states, as I guess is what they're called in modern games, the ability to run or sprint, melee attack options, and new types of abilities unrelated to just beam weapons and things like that. All right, 2 things left. The next one is, what do I want to see next from Metroid overall as a series? And the biggest one is Metroid 6. Like I said, I have a newfound love and appreciation for these first-person 3D Metroid games, but 2D Metroid has a very soft spot in my heart, and it's it's what made me fall in love with the series. And the Parasite, yeah, actually, with Fusion being my introduction to Metroid, that means my introduction to the series was through the X-Parasite saga. And we've seen that this franchise likes to work in trilogies. Metroids 1 through 3 are about the Metroids, 4 through 6. We don't know anything about 6, but based on what we do know in 5, we're going to see the little bit more of the X-Parasites, if not have a grand climactic finish to that saga. So yeah, this is a special trilogy to me in that sense, where yeah, there was that huge gap between 4 and 5 where it's like a whole lifetime, for me passed, that so much happened. I grew up during that gap. And so I started, one of my earliest gaming memories was Metroid Fusion on my Game Boy Advance. And then, I was playing Metroid Dread as an adult. It's a big deal. So Metroid 6, to tie it all up, is something I hope to live long enough to experience. I hope to God it doesn't experience another freaking 10 plus year gap between entries. But I think with the growing success of the franchise and hopefully the success of Prime 4, because I think Dread is like the best selling Metroid game, which, was kind of a given how popular the Switch was. Like every first party title seemed to do well, but it's good to see that Metroid did well too. And I'm glad it did. And it should have, because it's a fucking amazing game. It's one of my 3 favorite Metroid games of all time, and still one of my top 3 Metroidvanias. So yeah, they clearly have a great partner and studio in Mercury Steam who just knows how to do this. They understand Metroid. They're like the 2D version of Retro, where it's like, yeah, it's not Nintendo internal, Nintendo proper, but that's okay. They get it. Like, they know how to make Metroid, and in this case 2D Metroids, and I'm fully expecting Metroid 6 to be a fucking classic, to be a banger. I'm interested to see how they end that story, because the end of the saga for the Metroids and Metroid 1 through 3 is actually really nice, and really different from how you would expect an ending for a saga to be. Prime 3 is actually more like what you would expect for the end of like a saga to be, like, where it's this big blowout, right? Like, oh, the biggest cast ever, more action-packed scenes, more action than ever. Metroid 3, Super Metroid, like I said, it's a little bit more subdued in that way, but it still has emotional highs and moments that I think I'm expecting to see from Metroid 6. I honestly don't know where they go. They already went in a pretty crazy direction with Metroid 5 and that plot. So it's in a good place where I don't have any idea what Metroid 6 can look like or will look like. All I know is I'm excited as hell. That's going to be another event, and it's going to be an awesome game, and I can't wait. And I hope it comes out during the Switch 2 generation. We've already seen Mercury Steam show an expertise when it comes to optimization because Metroid Dread runs at 60 frames on Switch 1 and looks great. So it's, oh man, so yeah, on that front, it's going to be exciting to see what they can do with the visuals alone for 2D Metroid on Switch 2. Given that it comes out on Switch 2, I can't see why they wouldn't. It's, please, for the love of God, release this during my lifetime, during ideally this console generation, because I think it's going to be great. Of course, I think I touched on this before, but proper ports or remasters, that's the, oh my gosh, that's the holy grail of this, is to get remasters of Primes 2 and 3 and give them the same treatment, the same quality of appreciation and love and care as Metroid Prime 1 got, because it's phenomenal. Like I said, it is the definitive version of Prime 1, and I can't foresee a situation where Prime 2 and 3, their remasters, would not make them the definitive version of those games. That'd be great, but 1 foot forward. Retro's, hopefully this Prime 4 is Prime 4 of 6, and we get 2 more games, and it's a new saga, a new trilogy, so they're going to be busy with that, but hopefully they find a way and they come out with Prime 2 and 3 remasters. That's seeming less likely because of GameCube Online, but then again, I would have argued GameCube Online would kill the possibility of a sequel to Kirby Air Ride, because one, I just again never in a million years would have bet money on Kirby Air Ride getting a sequel, but two, because I'm like, well, you could just get Kirby Air Ride to people via GameCube Online, and that's how you could get Metroid Prime 2 to people with GameCube Online, and I could definitely see that happening. I think those odds are pretty high, but I would prefer very much. And also, we've seen for Prime 3, that one does have a chance because they have still re-released and remastered Wii games and sold them for purchase on Switch and Switch 2 with Donkey Kong Country Returns HD and Super Mario Galaxies 1 and 2, right? Like, if a Wii... Well, I mean, they also re-released and sold Super Mario Sunshine for money, and that is now probably going to get released on GameCube Online. So who knows? Nintendo, like I said before, they like to zig and zag on every occasion that they can. Maybe we do get Wii Virtual Console like a month after they release Prime 3 Remaster. So like you pay for it, and then it's also like, well, damn, I could probably have just waited to play it on NSO, Wii NSO for much less, but whatever, man. I want these games up-resed at the very least. Like I would take that, just like the Super Mario Galaxy 3D All-Stars treatment, where it's like it is just ported and up-resed and it looks great, and I can get it in a package, a trilogy or something, and put it on the shelf, have it all on cart. No game key card, please. Yeah, just want to see these games playable again via some means on the Switch or Switch 2, via the online or NSO or the eShop, right? Just make them legally viable options for people to revisit, because it should have been done, honestly. It should have been done in the lead up to Prime 3. There should have been a roadmap of hype. They could have made it multi-years like that, like 2-year long hype cycle where they just keep reinvigorating it with each new re-release. Prime 2, again, like I already laid it out, but like they should have re-released these already beforehand. Now they can, like, and it would be justified if Prime 4 is a huge success or successful enough, because then it's like, all right, people like Prime, they want it, this new generation. It's like 2007 was a long time ago, guys. Like there's people who maybe were, how old would they be now? Would they be like 16, 15 or something? There are people born around that time who are now playing games on their Switch 2 and experiencing Metroid in 3D for the first time ever with Prime 4. Why not, capitalize on that new audience, new generation, and release Primes 2 and 3 as well, and maybe go ahead and bundle Trilogy or remaster Prime Remastered in there as like a trilogy pack, a new version of the Wii game, the Wii trilogy. So that would be great. And let me see. Oh, Metroid 5, but I should have put it as Metroid Prime 5. Yeah, again, this is all dependent on if Prime 4 is a standalone entry instead of like the first of three games in a trilogy. Yeah, I mean, like I said, these Prime games, I think they're infallible when they're in the hands of Retro. I want to play them for the rest of my life, just keep chewing on one of these at any point in time. And it's all the more fun to do so if there's more Metroid Prime goodness to go around. So yeah, if Metroid Prime 4 isn't a standalone, then I look forward to hopefully Metroid 5. All these things feel very feasible within the Switch 2's generation, like the re-release of 2 and 3, even if they're just up-reses, right? In a physical format, that'd be great. That seems like the easiest way to go. Just up-res them, do the Super Mario All-Stars treatment where you don't really change anything in terms of textures, not even add save states or anything, just the raw game, just in HD, up-res to 1080. Do that. Make Metroid 6 in conjunction with Mercury Steam, because they haven't shown any, like, they're faultless when it comes to Metroid. I don't see why they wouldn't partner with them one last time, at least for Metroid 6. And then, yeah, Metroid 5, like we've seen Retro. I know nowadays, obviously, with the high res textures and stuff, developing a Metroid Prime game and how long this one took, it takes longer than it did back in the GameCube and Wii era. But Retro can do it. They can crank these out in a relatively faster clip than other studios of the modern era probably can. So yeah, I totally wouldn't be surprised and would love it if a Metroid Prime 5 got teased in like 1 year, 2 years from now. We get, a trailer or something, and actually like a fucking trailer. Like, don't lead us down this horrible path again where it's just like, oh, it's a logo and hello, see you later, or goodbye, see you in 8 years when it actually comes out. Like, no, like, let's actually get our shit together here. And we've got the engine, like I mentioned it earlier, but the amazing thing about the Metroid Prime engine is, I'm talking about the GameCube game, is that Retro, that is a in-house engine. That is a bespoke engine made by them for Prime. And in my surprise, in my research, I found Prime Remastered, and I guess theoretically Prime 4 too. I try to stay away from Prime 4 research and info and stuff, but I'm guessing it's very almost definitive that it is made with the exact same engine that Prime 1 was made on with GameCube 20 years ago. Obviously, the engine has been revamped and reworked and retooled to work in the modern era over the years, right? But they got it to that place where it could make and produce a game like Metroid Prime Remastered. But it is still that engine, right? They just keep building on it, changing it, and fixing it. That's crazy. These guys I would argue they're kind of, if this game, actually is a visual tour de force and performs amazingly, as well as, the trailers lead it on to be, like, Retro and that engine and whatever else, they made Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, right? If they did, and I played that on Wii or the Wii U, that game ran perfectly great. I didn't have any issues and it looked great too. Like, their technical wizardry is probably close to or on par with Monolith, the team that, or whatever team helps with the development of the 3D Zelda games, because obviously Tears of the Kingdom specifically was lauded for like the physics stuff that they were doing. Like, game developers were coming out and saying like, this is magic, this is wizardry, dude, like what they're doing here, especially on the hardware that they're doing it on with Switch 1. And this engine that Retro has created and is theoretically using for Prime 4 and all the previous Prime games, it sings. It runs amazingly, and it has produced the best visuals they probably could with that level of performance they were targeting for the time with GameCube and Wii. And this game is now like the first party game on Switch 2 that's at 120 frames. And that's insane. 1080p 120. Like, like they're clearly really good at programming and all that stuff and not just producing cool game design ideas, but then relying on an engine like Unreal that's a stuttery mess. Like, no, they can also program and maintain an engine like this and modernize it to produce a result as impressive as Metroid Prime 4. And yeah, I think it points to them, maybe if they get their feet under them, or, work out the kinks that made this development cycle so tough, then yeah, they could produce Metroids 5 and 6 at a much faster clip. Like, I know modern Nintendo likes to really space out these entries in their franchises. They don't want to, burn them out or anything like that. Like, I think there was a specific quote that was made to the Ubisoft team that made the sequel to Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. I think they told him, like, you should, they let him do it anyways because, I don't know, but they're like, you should probably wait until the next console generation to make another Mario plus Rabbids game. And Ubisoft, didn't take that advice, and they released the follow-up, and apparently didn't sell as well as it should have. But I think Ubisoft's name was also, it's just been getting worse and worse and tarnished over the years, and I think that's played a part in their sort of downfall, that their downward trajectory, even if it's not deserved on the part of the developers. Like, I think Star Wars Outlaws is great, and it performs great and stuff on Switch too. The Kingdom Battle games, the Mario plus Rabbids games are great. But that aside, there is this philosophy in Nintendo, I think, where it's like they don't mind letting these franchises breathe and have a lot of time pass between entries, because it's, as the old saying goes, distance makes the heart grow fonder, right? Like, yeah, Metroid, I think it's very possible 5 and 6 could come out on Switch 2, but I did not buy a Switch 2 in anticipation of getting a whole trilogy of Metroid Prime games on it. I bought it for Kirby Air Riders. Like, that was a system seller for me. And Metroid Prime at 120 frames or whatever all these Switch 2 benefits is a cherry on top for sure. The last thing that I want to see next from Metroid after Prime 4, again, this is leaning into Metroid Prime 5 and 6, is just continued innovation of the formula, tone, and expectations of Metroid from Retro. Because that's what I saw over each entry over Prime 2 and 3, and now in 4. What little we've seen of 4, I've seen them innovate on the formula, on the tone, and on the expectations of what Metroid is and can be from Retro. They're not afraid to challenge Nintendo proper for what should be in the game or could be in the game, what Metroid can be, what you can do as Samus, right? And I love that. I love that they pushed them, because it has led to great results. I'll just say that. It has led to great results, and I just have a newfound love and respect for Retro after replaying the Prime games and seeing what amazing things they did with them. Even the more subtle, nuanced things where it's like, oh, okay, that's like the beam weapons, like me just realizing that during this recording, it's like, oh yeah, that's not a thing you can do in the 2D games. It's just alternate between your beams. At least I can't off the top of my head. I don't think even in Dread you can. Like, that's a innovative and, massive change to the traditional formula. But they went ahead and did it, right? They managed to get the green light on it. It also helps, I guess, maybe that it's a different producer running and overseeing the series on the NOE side. It's not Sakamoto, which I kind of wish it was, because it looks like some of this timeline stuff is getting a little messy. But they're still canon, which is cool. We'll see if Prime 4 changes that, if we go on a new tangent, if she just enters a new timeline because she traveled not just in space, but in time. I could see them doing that, actually. But yeah, that's just, if this is part of a new trilogy, which I think it is, because God, Retro couldn't even help themselves. Like, at the end of Prime 3, spoilers, secret ending, they tease Prime 4. They teased Prime 4 over 13 years ago or whatever it was, with Silex appearing in that secret ending. His ship is there, and it follows Samus as she takes off after finishing the mission. Like, they clearly have ambitions for Metroid and Samus's story, and for these and ideas for what to do in later games that they want to explore, and you just give them the chance to, Nintendo, because these games are amazing. It's effortless brilliance on their part. All three games are phenomenal. 4, I expect, is going to be enjoyable and phenomenal too. Who knows where it ranks amongst the existing Prime games, at the end of the day, but I fully expect it to be fun. Like, the formula, the foundation that they've set already works so well. And we've had years, again, like so many changes and optimizations and mechanics have been introduced and ideas for first-person shooters that I think they can adopt. And I think I'll just jump from there to the final topic, which is my feelings about Prime 4, given what little we've seen and what little I've allowed myself to see of it pre-release, and I guess what I kind of know about it now afterwards, just in terms of the general public's opinion. So I'll say this. Already that I saw some backlash, some negative discourse surrounding the open world stuff that they showed and the motorcycle. I do not share any of those sentiments. Like, I think it's if my reaction is still up or not. I was popping off. Like, it was so unbelievable that I didn't even think it was a trailer for Prime 4. I thought it was a trailer for maybe like a spin-off or like a racing game or something, because I couldn't believe it. Like, this is literally uncharted ground for Metroid in general. Like, she's never in the 2D games had a vehicle. I'm thinking about it. No, she's boots on the ground, running around, pumping those arms, like I said, sprinting. And in same with Prime, where I'm like, dude, I would just want to run. But now we've got a freaking bike, and I don't know what I mean, I've grown up in a deserty area, not the desert proper, but I have been out riding in the desert a few times. And I just have, even before then, going to the desert, I've always had a love and affinity for the desert, like sand and dunes and stuff. I don't know what it is, where it stems from. Maybe it is just growing up here in a, quote unquote desert. But yeah, like my Uncharted 3 with the whole like desert stuff, like that was yeah, I still remember that fondly. Like I have, and again, Star Overdrive, the whole game is like you shredding on a freaking desert dunes, and it's one of my Game of the Year contenders. I have a strange, I don't know if it's strange, but I have a love for the desert and for riding motorcycles on the desert and ATVs and stuff. So nothing about what they showed of that and what I saw was displeasing in the slightest. I am fucking stoked. Like, I can't tell you how fucking cool that is. And not only that, like, people are acting like, oh, it's empty. It's a fucking desert. Like, have you been to a desert in a game? My favorite biome in Breath of the Wild and Tears is the Gerudo Desert. And guess what a desert is? It's a lot of sand. It's mostly sand and dunes. And Star Overdrive was like, what if you were just shredding and, riding a hoverboard around it and doing sick tricks and getting airborne? I'm like, yes, please. It was great. I loved it. So nothing I saw here was disappointing or worrying at all. I'm in fact super stoked. I am fucking so hyped. I want to get to that section so badly, because they showed it. It's a desert. It looks like a desert. Yes, obviously a desert is typically not as filled with foliage and wildlife and stuff. At least not wildlife you can see out and about. It's like a lot of snakes and lizards living under the sand and stuff. But what is there's also combat, and she's fucking fighting on the bike, brother. Come on. Like, I don't know. Like, this is what I mean. Like, you do you, different strokes, different folks. Some people saw that and were turned off or worried or like, Metroid's dead, or fucking Retro's lost their mind, they're jumping the shark. Nah, I don't agree at all. I think it looks so awesome. And on top of the awesomeness, I think that red suit is probably the best in the series. Like, I don't know what, like, lately they just been going nuts. The dread suit, like, even with Sakamoto and Fusion, like, Fusion is insanely, like, different. Like, what a departure it is for the suits in the series when they go from Super Metroid to Fusion, where it's like forget the shoulder pads and like just sort of the overall like mechanical look of it. It's now like this biological form that's like attached to her, right? Like already 20 years ago they circumvented the norms there. So like they're not afraid to do that. And like with this one, I mean they've already messed with svelte and more streamlined suits before in the Prime series. One of the suits in one of the Prime games is very svelte. And it overall just seems to be more like anatomically correct. You know, like it's a person in that suit. And in Prime 1 specifically, it feels like the arms are a little bit further out than it would normally be for a normal person of any build. You know, like there's something off about the anatomy of the suit there. But in Primes 2 and 3, you see the suit actually be a little bit more form fitting and streamlined to actually fit a human body. And we see that even for the Various suit briefly in the first trailer, the first few trailers, where it just looks like you could actually wear that suit and fit in it. It's not like ultra bulky in ways where it's like you can't even move properly. So like the red suit is just extremely form fitting, and the suit in Dread specifically, like Fusion, that one's like skin tight basically, and Dread builds on that where it's a little bit of the mechanical stuff growing back. It's literally growing back organically, which is cool, but it's also got the biological stuff, but it fits really tight. Like it's a very nice form fitting suit, and it allows her to run faster because it's a little bit lighter on the keeps her lighter on her feet. And this red suit is just even more svelte, right? Like I like that the suits are looking like they actually could fit a person inside, and a person could actually use it well and move around well. And so I think, yeah, it just from a design perspective, anatomically, it seems correct. And just in terms of a fucking aesthetic, I mean, god damn, that thing is clean. That is a badass suit. Like it is up there. Like it's between the white and blue Dread suit, the one she first starts with, and this red and black Viola suit. Like they are so good. Like I love that design. I think it looks great. No issues there. Like honestly, but this is more theoretical. Like so far those are the things we've seen, and then the psychic stuff we'll see. You know, like the ability to control your shots and stuff, it's already something I do and enjoy in a game called Immortals Phoenix Rising. You can control your bow and arrow shots like that. I think it's really cool, especially in an open world setting like that one, where you can kind of look at far off areas from up close using that. Use it as like a drone almost. Maybe you can use it like, oh shit, maybe you can use it like that here in Metroid, where it's like you can shoot towards a part of a map that you can't maybe reach yet, but then see if there's a missile expansion or some kind of ability or upgrade up at the top of a room or somewhere far off, right, that you can't reach yet, that there's something there. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, you could use it to scope out, because obviously when you're following the shot, like they show in the trailer, the camera is centered on the projectile. So you're moving along space with it. And it seems to slow down time too, to make it easier to direct the shot accurately, just like in Phoenix Rising. So it's not a groundbreaking new mechanic, because again, other games have done this, but it is cool. I like it. The other psychic thing of opening doors, sure, whatever, that looks fine, as long as it introduces fun new mini games, kind of like in Daemon X Machina. When you're mining, you do like this reticle mini game where you're trying to center it on something and press a button at the right time to break that part of the ore. So I enjoy mini games like that, like the hacking mini game in Cyberpunk. So if they use the psychic ability to introduce like a couple mini game mechanics in the game for unlocking certain doors and stuff, I'm all game for it. That'd be cool. But I'm expecting them to get a little bit goofier with what they can do with that, or what she can do with that. But we'll see. I'm going in blind. I always recommend going into anything, games, movies, shows, blind. I love being surprised and stuff like that in these things. So I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised by the kind of stuff she can do with her psychic abilities. At first, I wasn't in love with the purple hue it gave to her visor when she's in the Various suit, because the Various suits always had like the iconic green glow to it, and in Zero Mission it was blue, but like, it's never been purple. But it looks so much better. The purple and crimson red, or whatever, the dark red. Oh my god, just vicious, dude. Viciously badass. Like, it's so good. But there is something this is a theory. And this theory has to do with specifically the second trailer, the main trailer where they showed off the release date. They revealed that finally. And it has to do with the music, the environmental design, and the overall tone that those things create together. And basically things like this environment in that trailer where it's showing like the spiky black buildings and stuff like that, and they show her fighting enemies in like dark areas. Like, I know there's enclosed spaces always, but like she's outside at some point and she's shooting missiles at these little crab-like things that look like they're from Metroid Prime 3, that these creatures that were in that game. They're very cute and fun. But it feels like she's wandered into an actually dangerous and violent place. Like, honestly, like with in conjunction with the music, like the setting I'm saying is looking pretty evil. Like, there's something innately evil and dark about the settings that they showed off in that trailer. And in conjunction with the music, which I didn't have, like I said, I haven't played the Metroid Prime games in a while, specifically 2 and 3 since they came out. So I was curious to see if guitar was used a lot in those original soundtracks. And no, it definitely wasn't. You get more guitar in Metroid Prime Hunters for the DS, in that limited sound chip and whatnot. And also in some tracks, like a couple tracks, maybe even only in Prime 3, but nothing to the degree that we hear in the trailer for this game. That song is wicked, bro. Like, that is a fucking face-melting guitar. It is so good. Like, already, I haven't even heard the full song. We just heard the portions that they had in the trailer. It is my favorite song in all the Prime games. I mean, it slaps. And hopefully it's not just like a song for the trailer, and it's in the game. But even if it is, that actually plays into my theory a little bit more, because that's advertising, right? They're advertising the game with that song, and what that song echoes to me are vibes and the overall feeling and approach of a game series that is very well known and very well loved, which is Doom. And obviously Doom has this very fun, and it pioneered this, this formula of these demonic creatures and settings, and you're literally fighting out of your way out of hell or whatever, to the tune of fucking heavy metal, like hardcore rock music. And it's all, very blood pumping, high octane action. And they kind of like really were leaning into that with this trailer, with the fucking motorcycle, which is badass rock and roll shit. They got the music that's literally rock and roll with the ripping guitar. It's like literally a guitar. It's like, in Prime, when I'm saying there's guitar in those songs, it's more like single strings, right? We're not talking about straight up chord strumming and things like that. Prime 4, that song is chord strumming. It starts up with the chun jiganan jiganan jiganan. Like, that is unheard of in the Prime games. Maybe in the the chip tunes, like they're trying to replicate guitar stuff. Yeah, I don't know. But we're in sort of new territory here for Metroid with this soundtrack that they just premiered with that trailer. And it's pointing to me into a direction that's very Doom-like. And that's why I'm talking about like the ability to run and melee attacks and like short range, or something akin to a melee attack, like a short range shotgun blast. Because I think things are going to get wild. I think we're starting, like, I don't know, maybe Retro's also been like on that Doom kick, because remember Doom 2016, that came out many years after Metroid Prime 3, and that, injected a shot into the arm of first person shooters and reinvigorated the boomer shooter genre, which is like blowing up like crazy now. There's all kinds of great boomer shooters out there, and I've enjoyed a few of them. I've become a fan, whereas I wasn't many years ago. I actually, played Doom 2016. I don't know if I played it at the time, but I played it shortly around that time afterwards, and I loved it. I enjoyed it a ton, and I got into those moods where I'm like, let's do it, let's rip and tear, like, it's a very distinct vibe, and I couldn't help but feel it just through, again, the visuals, the settings, and the music, and the pacing of this trailer and everything they showed. it all just screamed Doom to me. And I really do think that at some point in this game, things are, I hope, because I love Doom and I would be okay with this. I know this is one of those things where it's like, but that's not Metroid, like having the Aurora unit talking to Samus throughout the course of Metroid Prime 3. Like, I could see people really hating that because Samus, in the classic games, Metroid 1 and 2, and yeah, the first 3, the 2D games, Samus doesn't have anyone to chat with. It's all, again, ambience and silence and a solitary experience, right? Like, that's what Metroid began as. And that's what Metroid, people who got into the series know it for at that time. I don't know what it is. Like, I got into Metroid with Fusion, and it's not like that's Doom coded or anything like that. Like, it is still very Metroid, just has a lot more story interjection and character dialogue and stuff, which is still maybe too much of a deviation for true diehard original fans of the original first 3 games. But I would not be opposed to them going in this direction. Like, if at some point in the game we start getting straight up kill rooms, like we already do in Primes 2 and 3, actually. Like, the doors will lock and it's go time, right? But the soundtrack and the settings and like the pacing and the weaponry and all that never really truly leaned into the boomer shooter genre the way that they could if they wanted to. And I think I would be okay with, I maybe it doesn't work. I don't see why it wouldn't, though, because this is, like I said, it's an action adventure game first. It's a Metroidvania first and foremost, which is heavy on exploration, but it is a first person shooter second, right? And like I said, Retro is not afraid to innovate on the formula, tone, and expectations of Metroid. And I think given all that has happened and transpired in the first-person shooter space since Metroid Prime 3, and even Metroid Prime 3, they were given a better shooting, like a better control scheme to make a shooter, and they took advantage of it. You're killing hundreds of enemies in that game, and they're, coming up with unique ways, unique enemy types and ways to dispatch of them. They're not afraid, and they don't shy away from the first person shooting mechanics and really capitalizing on what they have. And given what we've seen again in the first person shooting genre and genres since the release of Prime 3, I think they've learned and they've seen what has transpired, and they maybe want to adopt and implement those things and mechanics into their game. And I think it would be cool, Diehards be damned. Like, hey, you want to be a fossil and never experience change or give change a chance? Then be my guest, right? Go ahead and just replay Metroids 1 through 3 on your SNES and your Game Boy and your NES, But don't force all of us to do the same too, Like, why not give it a chance? It could be fun. I mean, boomer shooters are super popular, and because they're super fun. It's for a good reason, right? People enjoy them. And it would be really cool to see Metroid lean into it, not just in terms of gameplay, but in terms of music, because fuck that. Like, that's a ripping song. Like I said, face melting, face shredding guitar stuff, but it's still not like Doom levels where it's like fucking heavy metal, like bah, 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 bah. Like it's very still Prime like, but it's a different take on what we've gotten from music in the Prime games. But I think it's still within that space, right? Like, they haven't jumped the shark. It's not totally alien. Again, it's Retro just doing things expertly, man. I tell you, I can't praise them enough, where it's like they just keep pushing that boundary of what Metroid is without ever actually abandoning what Metroid is. They just kind of introduce new frontiers for it. And I really am just, fuck it, I'm getting more excited as I talk about this. But yeah, Prime 4, I really do. My theory is we're leaning more into boomer shooter territory than ever before, and it's gonna fucking rock. And also, the open world stuff isn't going to be as cumbersome or as much of a drag as people think, because again, I think it's going to be something you only really have to engage with once to get from A to B to unlock a warp point that you can fast travel to. But Yeah, I'm digging the motorcycle, maybe even other vehicles that get introduced. Even if it's just the motorcycle, that's already enough for me. Like, motorcycles are the fucking shit. They're my favorite. Um, but yeah, I'm digging everything they showed, basically. I'm digging the new open world stuff. I'm digging the way you traverse the open world. I'm digging the new suit. I'm digging the new psychic abilities. And I'm digging the potential shift into boomer shooter territory with the first person shooting. Why not liven things up and change things up in that way? It would be really cool. So yeah, that kind of sums up everything I could possibly talk about in regards to Metroid Prime 4 and just sort of the Metroid franchise overall. And yeah, what else can I say? But it's an event. This is exciting, and I can't wait to play Prime 4. It's gonna be great. This is a very special franchise that's near and dear to my heart that I now recognize officially as my favorite video game franchise ever. And yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with this game.